On today's show, the Houston Rockets got absolutely bullied by the Detroit Pistons in their third Summer League game. What went wrong for Reed Sheppard, Cam Whitmore, and company? Plus, who is Jack McVeigh, and why did the Rockets sign him to a two-way contract? It's all coming up on today's Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And just like that, the Houston Rockets Summer League Championship hopes have been destroyed. What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Mondays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That's the best way that you can help our show out, is to go comment anything below the YouTube video, share your thoughts on why the Rockets lost to the Pistons, or just come by and say go Rockets. It helps us out a ton. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more this summer because FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you for being an everydayer. So we're going to unpack and try and figure out just what the hell went wrong for the Rockets against the Detroit Pistons here in their third Summer League game, falling to the Pistons by a final score of 87 to a measly 73 points. We're going to discuss takeaways from the game, all that good stuff. And then a little bit later on in the show, we're going to tackle who is Jack McVeigh and why did he pop up on the Rockets' radar and suddenly sign a two-way contract seemingly overnight. So let's start with the gross Rockets-Pistons game, which it really was kind of a gross game. Like at one point, one of my colleagues from Locked On turned to me during the game and he said, "Do you have any notes from this game?" And I was like, "Yeah, kind of." Like it was one of those where sometimes like he just kind of, he was like, "Yeah, Summer League, am I right?" And I was like, "Yeah, Summer League." It was just kind of one of those games. First off, I definitely think there was a bit of a scheduling impact here. I'm not going to go so far as to say it was a schedule loss. Summer League games are not traditional NBA games, right? There's no travel involved. It's not like they were going from hotel to hotel and checking in late and didn't get a good night's sleep. I mean, you're staying and living in one area. But I will say, playing on Friday, then playing again on Sunday, then playing again on Monday, and specifically on Monday, a less than 24-hour turnaround from when they played on Sunday, like, that is a little taxing on the body, right? 3 games in 4 nights is never easy, regardless what level you're playing at. And trust me when I say the guys playing at Summer League are taking it very seriously, because all the fringe NBA guys, all the guys on Exhibit 10 deals who are trying to carve themselves out a spot in the NBA, on an NBA roster somewhere, those guys are playing out of their minds. They're giving it 110, 120% effort every second, every possession that they are out there, because it could be the difference in them making it to the NBA and, gaining a standard NBA contract or a two-way deal or getting another chance further down the line versus them, being at home playing basketball in their driveway like Gerald Green was that one time. So the intensity is absolutely there, even if the talent level of the competition is not quite what you would expect, from the actual NBA landscape. So I just want to provide that one little bit of context from the jump. But I will say, just looking at things, the Pistons were just the aggressor in this game, right? A couple, Coach Garrett Jackson mentioned it. Reed Sheppard mentioned it, right? The physicality that the Pistons were playing with. Reed said that the Pistons came out and kind of punched him in the mouth, and they really didn't have a response after it happened. Coach Garrett Jackson was just talking about the physicality that the Pistons played with, and they didn't think that they matched up with that physicality very well at all throughout the course of this game. And it matches the eye test, because this game was, of the 3 that the Rockets have played so far in Las Vegas, this was the one where it really felt like it was the Rockets' first, we'll call it like the get it out the mud game, right? Because it was a sloppy game. The shooting on both sides was abysmal. The Rockets, I mean, they really struggled across the board. Cam Whitmore, just 1 of 15 shooting in this game. Reed Sheppard, 6 of 17 shooting. AJ Griffin actually had one of his better summer league games, one of the lone kind of positives from this game for the Rockets. Nate Williams, who's been one of the Rockets' most consistent summer league contributors, was only 6 of 14 in this one. Orlando Robinson kind of came back down to earth after his 22 and 15 performance. Just across the board, the Rockets kind of struggled. I want to get further into the specifics of the struggles for Reed and Cam, especially in this game. But I do think that the major takeaway here is just going to be like, it's summer league. And while I was having a lot of fun overreacting to the first 2 games and how good Reed and Cam looked, it is important to remember not to overreact to summer league games, right? Reed Sheppard's not a future Hall of Famer just because he put up, you know, insane stats in his first 2 summer league games. And likewise, he's also not a bust just because he struggled in this summer league game. And in fact, I will highlight here the main reason that I think Reed Sheppard struggled in this game is a reason that a lot of summer league teams struggle across the board and wind up, you know, things looking a little funky out there, especially on the offensive end, is he was realistically the only primary initiator, the only playmaker for this Rockets summer league team. And the Pistons bullied the hell out of him. They focused all of their defensive efforts on trying to stop Reed Sheppard. And he still, look, and Reed still managed to post 15 points, 4 rebounds, couple assists, had 3 steals, did have 4 turnovers, you know, again, only on 6 of 17 shooting. So he struggled. The efficiency wasn't there like we saw it in the previous couple games, but it's because he was the only point of offensive initiation for the Rockets. And so all the Pistons had to do was focus everything on him, right? They were guarding him much more at the level, putting a lot more focus on him, coming out of pick and roll actions, and they basically smothered him defensively without like full-blown like double teaming him, you know, 30 feet away from the basket, which is probably the only step higher that you could go as far as defensive attention goes on a scouting report in summer league, which we've seen in the past, right? We saw Jalen Green back when he played in summer league. We saw him getting double teamed 30 feet away from the basket, which was absolutely ridiculous then. That's kind of what they did. And they took away a lot of the Rockets' stabilizing offensive force by minimizing Reed Sheppard and his role within the offense. Not to mention there were plenty of opportunities where Reed did generate some offense, you know, got a good set run, and, you know, the Rockets got a good look out of it, and they couldn't hit. I mean, it really felt like every single shot came up just a little bit short. It looked like dead legs. It looked like a team that had played their 3rd game in 4 nights. And so I'm not going to sit here and say that they lost explicitly because of the scheduling. They just played a really bad game. I'm just highlighting that the scheduling absolutely probably played a little bit of a factor in there, as well as you tip your cap to the Detroit Pistons. They just played harder than the Rockets. They had no answer for Denise Jenkins, who went off for 26 points on 8 of 16 shooting. He was 6 of 11 from downtown. And then Bobby Klintman actually did a really solid job, I think, guarding and really frustrating Cam Whitmore throughout the course of this game, which is one of the reasons that I think Cam went just 1 of 15. But coming up, I want to share some additional thoughts and takeaways from this one. Why Cam Whitmore's 1 of 15 isn't majorly concerning, but just trying to understand why he went 1 of 15 and understanding a little bit of who he is as a player. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything that you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices that you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, let's unpack a little bit more from this Rockets-Pistons game. Specifically, I want to focus in here on Cam Whitmore and his alarmingly bad 1 of 15 performance. So Cam Whitmore in this game, 5 points, 1 of 15 shooting, 0 of 5 from downtown, went 3 of 4 at the charity stripe. He had 3 rebounds. He did have 5 assists. He's been ever since like the second half of game 1, he's had a renewed focus towards involving his teammates, making solid passes, trying to get other guys involved. So I will commend him in that regard. But this was easily this might have been the worst game that I've ever witnessed Cam Whitmore play, honestly, even across all the time that he spent at the NBA level. And part of it is I was absolutely floored to see that Cam Whitmore was playing in a third summer league game, especially given the way that the schedule was rolled out, with this one, the third game being a back-to-back after Sunday's game. I fully expected Cam Whitmore to be shut down. Even others like Jonathan Fagan of the Houston Chronicle, he fully expected Cam Whitmore to be shut down going into game 3. It was a surprise to pretty much all of us, the Rockets media contingent there in Vegas, that Cam Whitmore was playing. And again, I even highlighted here on the show that there was a possibility that they might have shut down Reed Sheppard before game 3 ultimately. Now, I will say right here, I almost fully believe now, after the way that those guys looked in game 3 and realistically the way that the whole team looked, I'm kind of fully expecting at this point the Rockets to shut down both Cam and Reed for the remaining summer league games. There's not really much more that you need to learn or get out of either of those two guys. Like, Reed has shown you everything he needs to show you. Cam has shown you a much better version of himself in the sense of being able to involve or attempt to involve others. But Cam is who he is as a player. You know, I know we talked last episode and he spoke in post-game about the coaching staff's desire to, mold him, make him a more well-rounded player. He's got plenty of time to do that. It's not going to happen in one summer, but the fact that he's been receptive to what the coaching staff wants, the fact that he's kind of dialed in and focused on his playmaking above all else is good to see. At the same time, Cam is a guy who is much more effective in the role that he was playing throughout the regular season for the Rockets. He's not at a place where he is a primary creator for an offense. Cam is so much more effective when somebody else is handling the initiation responsibilities and he gets to be a play finisher. He's an elite play finisher right now at just 20 years old, which is incredible to say. Very few, 20-year-olds can say that they're an elite play finisher at the NBA level. When you have Fred VanVleet or Jalen Green or Alperen Sengun, or in this case in Summer League, Reed Sheppard running and orchestrating and generating the offense, and then Cam Whitmore gets to come in and just do his thing and be the play finisher, it looks a lot better. In this game against the Pistons, again, it was really frustrating across the board. The defensive intensity was the most that the Rockets had dealt with through their first 3 Summer League games, and they really tried to take away Reed Sheppard's ability to generate the offense for his teammates, and that left other guys like Cam, like Nate Williams, like AJ Griffin kind of on an island to fend for themselves. And without having that primary initiator to really kind of be the first domino offensively to break things down and get the defense scrambling to where you can attack a defense that isn't set, really took its toll, especially on Cam. So I think you couple a few things there, right? The Detroit defense, Cam just having an overall bad game, plus his mentality coming to these games hasn't been his traditional mentality, right? It's been, okay, the coaching staff is asking me to play make. How do I, he's out there. It seemed at times he was more thinking about what he was going to do as far as trying to like set up a teammate or make the right pass, as far as instead of just playing his game. We know how good Cam can be when he's just playing his role. Again, I like that they're trying to make him a more well-rounded player. It took until year 3, right? We saw early flashes from Jalen Green as a playmaker, which was a very pleasant surprise given the, Jalen's number one skill when he came into the NBA was supposed to be, he's a bucket, right? He was supposed to be an alpha level scorer. And we saw the playmaking flashes early, and then especially this past season under Ime, he became a much more well-rounded player, a much better playmaker, a much better defender. We saw the shooting and the scoring numbers kind of regress a little bit as he was getting more acclimated to that new well-rounded role within the Rockets system. but I fully expect Cam Whitmore to kind of go through the same like metamorphosis as a player. Scoring is not the issue with Cam. We know that he can score the hell out of the ball. How much more well-rounded can he become as a player? How much better can he get as a defender? How much better can he get as a playmaker? And that'll be the difference between Cam Whitmore just being this like lightning in a bottle, sixth-man type guy that you bring in as like a supercharged reserve off the bench versus him down the line potentially being a star-level shooting guard, a star-level player in the league who is well-rounded and can do a little bit of everything and improve or make his teammates better using his scoring gravity, using his ability to create for not only himself, but for others. So wanted to highlight that there. Also wanted to point out here for Reed Sheppard, we've been praising Reed's defense through these first 3 Summer League games. And don't make no mistake, I'm still incredibly impressed by what Reed Sheppard has brought to the table so far defensively and how I think he's going to fit into the confines of a team defense at the NBA level for the Houston Rockets. Now, that said, there are some smaller-ish concerns with him defensively, namely when Reed is on an island, when he's guarding in isolation, he tends to get beat pretty frequently in ISO. That's one major kind of negative takeaway that I've had through 3 Summer League games is when you have him guarding on the perimeter and there's no help, there's no pick and roll action, there's no other players for him to kind of, lean on a little bit defensively, then it's really easy for a guy to just get past him one-on-one. The lateral quickness, I won't say it's a concern, but it needs to improve. His ability to guard one-on-one and keep his defender in front of him has to improve. Now I don't think Reed's ever going to be like a quote unquote defensive liability. I think he's going to be very similar to Fred VanVleet as an NBA level defender, especially with, a couple years under his belt further down the line. That said, the other takeaway that I have is he got really foul happy in this game. Reed Sheppard in this game picked up 6 fouls. Now, you can have up to 10 fouls in Summer League, so it's really, really hard to foul out of a Summer League game. But Reed Sheppard had 6 fouls in this game, and a lot of it is because he got slap happy with his hands. He has incredibly quick hands, incredibly active hands defensively, but he also got a little trigger happy in this game with trying to swipe down on too many different plays. And the Pistons play, again, credit to the Pistons players. They did a really good job of staying strong with the basketball, holding on to it, and forcing him to foul them rather than playing, all loosey-goosey with the ball to where Reed is able to pick up 5 steals like he did against the Washington Wizards. So that's going to be something that he has to learn. And actually, Alperen Sengun went through a little bit of a similar thing his first season or 2 in the NBA as well, because Alp processes the game at such a quick level, at such a fast level, right? For such a young player, that was one of the things that really immediately stood out about Sengun is he just sees things happening before they actually happen on the floor. That's why he's got the court vision that he does. That's why he's the playmaker that he is, because he sees and reads and understands things offensively, and that also helps him on the defensive end because he's anticipating and expecting what other players are going to be doing. And so Sengun, to make up for maybe some of his other physical limitations, right? Not the tallest, not the strongest, not the fastest. He does utilize his processing speed and he uses his quick hands to try and strip guys on the way to the rim, all that kind of stuff. And you kind of see that same processing happening with Reed defensively to where, yeah, he might get beat on a possession, but he's never out of the possession. He talked about that at his intro presser, right? Yeah, he might get beat if a guy, drives past him on the perimeter, but he's going to rotate. He's going to make sure that he's in the next right position to intercept a pass in the passing lane or tip a shot from behind, get a strip, whatever, knock it off the guy's thigh, and, send it out of bounds. And that's what's going to make him a good defender at the NBA level. That's why I'm not worried about him, even though physically he might be a little bit limited when a guy has like, a lightning quick first step or something. He might have some trouble at times staying in front of, explosive lightning quick guards. But at the end of the day, NBA defense has 5 guys for a reason, right? So I don't think that Reed is ever going to be the type of player that you have to hide defensively or stick in the corner because you don't want him guarding on the perimeter. But it's just going to be a thing that the Rockets have to take into consideration when Reed is out on the floor. Where is he funneling guys to, right? Where's his help defense? Where is the help coming from? And what's his next rotation if he does get beat? All these little things that go into the context of a team defense. And the one thing that we know about Reed from his time at Kentucky and even through a handful of Rockets Summer League games is he is a phenomenal team defender, and that's going to carry him a very, very long way at the NBA level. Coming up, I want to talk a little bit about AJ Griffin, his first good Summer League game, as well as who the hell is Jack McVeigh and why did the Rockets sign him to a two-way contract? We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Look, I love sports. I love them so much. I never really want them to stop. But when you got playoffs winding down and you get fewer and fewer games, and then the sports maybe aren't sportsing the way you want them to, look, FanDuel lets you keep the sports going whenever you want. All you have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime you're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Right now, you can head on over to FanDuel.com and take a look at the outright betting favorites to win the title this next NBA season. The Boston Celtics currently the favorites to repeat at plus 300. Behind them, you have the upstart OKC Thunder at plus 750 to win it all. And then just behind them, Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets at plus 850 to win next year's title. So for all those odds and so much more, head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, I want to share some positivity out of this third Rockets Summer League game. For one, AJ Griffin, who finished the game with easily his best Summer League performance to date. 18 points on 7 of 13 shooting. Shout out 7-1-3. 2 of 3 from downtown, 2 of 2 at the free throw line. Had 5 rebounds, had a steal in there, had a block, only 1 turnover. A really solid outing for AJ Griffin after a couple, really disappointing performances through the first couple games. And I will say that this game, it felt like he finally kind of settled in to how he should be playing in this game. In talking to, people around Summer League, talked to a couple different scouts and a couple different people who used to cover AJ Griffin in Atlanta, they all more or less had the same kind of thing to say about him. The same idea about him is just that the shooting is very real with AJ Griffin. The shooting is absolutely something that is going to be a big part of his game. The question marks around him are going to be his commitment to defense. A couple of the Atlanta guys that I spoke to basically said that his defense was actually one of the main reasons that he fell out of the rotation with Quinn Snyder, is he just was such a defensive liability that they couldn't have him out there on the floor. And he really is, the perfect change of scenery guy. Getting to a new place, getting to the Houston Rockets, it could do wonders for him. And again, all the Rockets need him to do is to be a great floor spacer, which it sounds like from the people that I've spoken to and from what I've seen at least, is that part of his game seems legitimate, right? The outside shooting is very real, and he is a good outside shooter, and that's desperately something that this Rockets team lacked last season. But you can't just be a one-trick pony, right? You can't just be, you're a lethal outside shooter, but you're abysmal at everything else on the floor. He's got good size, right? He's a legit 6'6", 6'7". He's got a strong body. He has the physical gifts to be a good defender. One of the other things that I heard is he doesn't process very quickly on offense or on defense. So on offense, you don't really want him taking on too much more, biting off more than he can chew, right? He should basically just be a stationary catch and shoot 3-point player offensively. That's what he should be on offense. You don't really want him doing more than that on offense, because that's when things get a little murky. And then defensively, that processing, becomes an issue when he's not sure where to rotate to or what to do next defensively. Those things that hopefully Ime Udoka can iron out. That's what my hope is if Ime can take a guy who is a legitimate outside 3-point threat and also has the physical gifts to be at least a decent defender, right? Nobody's asking AJ Griffin to be an all-NBA caliber defender overnight. If he can just get to a point where he's not a negative defensive piece for the Rockets, then I don't see a reason why he can't crack into the rotation at some point this next season, because the Rockets desperately need shooting. And he's a young, talented player with an immense amount of upside. He's on an incredibly team-friendly contract. So I'm not out on AJ Griffin at all after the first two Summer League games. I mentioned as much. I just think that it's going to be a long road ahead for AJ Griffin to kind of rehabilitate his value and get his game back to a place where the Rockets feel comfortable enough to put him out on the floor potentially this next season alongside some of their other young players. But when you think about what his role could be on this Rockets team, that's all they need him to do, right? You're going to have guys like Sengun, like Jalen, like Fred, Reed, Amen, whoever, you're going to have other guys to initiate the offense. All they need are guys who can finish the play, right? Guys who can knock down the open shot when it's generated, and again, not be a defensive liability on the other side of the floor. So I liked what we saw to AJ Griffin here in Game 3. Now, let's get to a little bit of off-the-court news for the Houston Rockets, who reportedly signed in the NBL's Jack McVeigh. Which this kind of came randomly, although it was met with a lot of like praises being sung for the Rockets, namely biggest name out there, Sam Vecenie, who absolutely commended the Rockets front office for making a smart move by signing McVeigh. Apparently, Vecenie's been really high on this guy throughout the last 2 or 3 months of his career, and McVeigh has had one hell of a stretch of this 2 or 3 months. Basically, he led the Tasmania Jack Jumpers, his team that he's playing for in the NBL, to the NBL Championship Series game, in which he hit what has been regarded as the biggest shot in NBL history. Basically, the Jack Jumpers were down 91-90 with like less than 10 seconds left. They forced a turnover on the final inbounds play of the game, got the ball back. One of their players was like diving out of bounds, threw it back into Jack McVeigh, who then dribbled up the floor. Clock is counting down, right? Again, there was 8.1 seconds left on the clock, like when this action all started, something like that. Under 10 seconds for sure. McVeigh dribbles the ball up and pulls up for a ridiculous logo three-pointer with like 2 defenders like immediately in his vicinity, right? This was like a contested logo 3 that he drained to give them the win. He then, so they not only win the championship series game, right? They're the champions in the NBL. He becomes the NBL championship series MVP, so the equivalent of the NBA's finals MVP. Then immediately after that, he gets married. He gets named to the Australian Boomers kind of like extended squad. So basically the squad of guys that has, backups and the guys who are, it's basically not the finalized roster, but he gets named to the extended squad for the Paris Olympics, earns his spot in the full-time Paris Olympics rotation. And now he's, playing in Abu Dhabi, playing friendly games. He played a game against LeBron James and the USA team for the friendly games that they're playing over there. And I mean, he's just been on like an insane tear for like the last 3 months of his career. And now he's signing a 2-way contract with the Houston Rockets. Throughout this past season in the NBL, he averaged 16.5 points and 5.4 rebounds per game for the Jack Jumpers. He shot 52.5% from the floor and 36.4% from downtown on 4.6 attempts per game. So good volume, decent shooting percentage. ESPN quantifies him as a rangy forward who can effectively score at all 3 levels and particularly excels as a 3-point shooter. So the Rockets adding even more shooting to their roster. This seems like a guy who, on a 2-way deal, absolute slam dunk, right? He's 28 years old, so he's not like a young player at all, right? He's kind of, in the prime of his career right now, but he's a guy that's absolutely had to like claw it out tooth and nail to get to where he is in his career at this point. Apparently he is a really great locker room presence to have around. And again, he's playing on the Australian national team, the Boomers, alongside guys like Josh Giddey and our very own Jock Landale on that squad. So maybe Jock Landale had a little bit of input in this. Maybe, Stone kind of hit him up and he's like, hey, is this a guy that, we should be taking a look at? Maybe he got like the recommendation, what is it called? The referral on the resume slip when you're applying for a job. I don't know, from Jock Landale. But I like the pickup for the Rockets. It goes to so that is their final 2-way slot effectively right now, because they've got Nate Williams on one 2-way slot. They've got N'Faly Dante on the other 2-way slot. And now they have Jack McVeigh on the third and final 2-way slot. Now I need to educate myself on the logistics of 2-way slots, but at least I think my understanding is if the Rockets decide that they're not happy with N'Faly Dante, and if Orlando Robinson doesn't get a better offer from somewhere else down the line, I wonder if the Rockets are able to just waive N'Faly Dante from the 2-way slot that they assigned to him and extend that last position to Orlando Robinson, because I fully believe that through through what we've seen out of Summer League and what we know about them as players, Orlando Robinson is probably the better bet for that that two-way slot instead of N'Faly Dante. Maybe the Rockets are really high on his upside. Maybe they think they'll be able to keep him for longer than they would Orlando Robinson, because Robinson he's an NBA caliber player. Like, he should probably earn a standard NBA deal from some team out there looking for some backup big man help. So maybe the Rockets don't want to, flip Dante off the two-way slot because they don't want to lose Robinson further down the line for nothing. Who knows ultimately? But I like the McVey addition. I think it's very low risk, high reward play where maybe he turns into a standard NBA contract guy, right? Maybe he continues to excel at the NBA level, and he's one of those like diamond in the rough guys that the Rockets find from the NBL, going all the way back to when they pulled Jae'Sean Tate out of the NBL all those years ago. So that's who Jack McVeigh is. That's why the Rockets signed him to a two-way contract. How do you feel about what's going on with the Rockets? What are your thoughts on the loss to the Pistons? How do you feel about them signing Jack McVeigh? Let me know in the YouTube comments. But as always, thank you so much for checking out the show. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing. Wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube, just search Locked On Rockets. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, a 5-star review helps us out a ton. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.